All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Before we call the roll, I'd like to recognize two people. One who will be standing up here in just a minute. Ben Fennell and his dad, and Sarah's father-in-law, Bert Fennell. And glad you all are here. And this is an important day, and glad you all can be here to join in with Sarah on this. Mr. Cole, you call the roll.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cannell?
Here.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Here.
Commissioner Herbert?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson? Commissioner Williams?
Here.
And soon to be Commissioner Cannell is here. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The minutes were emailed to everyone. Is there a motion regarding the minutes of our December 19th meeting?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Next on our agenda is the oath of office for Sarah Pennell. The mayor has appointed Sarah, and the county city council has approved her, and today is the day that she will be sworn in for a 7-year term. And first of all, I'm sure speaking for all the board, we're glad you're here and that you're going to be on the board, and I think that you will enjoy this. And just as I heard Joe talking to you, it's an important function, and we're glad that you're going to be part of this board. And so what I'd like to do is ask Mr. Coley if he would administer the oath of office.
She wants to use her Bible.
Oh, good. Lovely.
Tracy.
Can you come around and
Put
just...
your hand on it in your right hand.
And I need to bring this stuff.
No, he'll read it. Oh, he'll read it.
We'll go slow. I tell you what we'd like to do is if you all stand right over here.
Sarah in the middle.
Is that good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you will, place your hand on the Bible and raise your right hand.
So excited.
How's that? All right. If you will, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications required by law
that I possess the qualifications required by law
for the office of KUB Commissioner,
for the office of KUB Commissioner,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Tennessee,
the Constitution of the State of Tennessee,
the Charter of the City of Knoxville,
the Charter of the City of Knoxville,
and the bylaws of KUB,
and the bylaws of KUB,
that I do not have any contracts or business interests
that I do not have any contracts or business interests
with KUB that constitute a conflict of interest,
with KUB that constitute a conflict of interest,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
and perform with fidelity
and perform with fidelity
the duties of Commissioner
the duties of Commissioner
without fear or favor,
without fear or favor,
to the extent of my skill and ability,
to the extent of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Sarah and Ben have a sick baby at home, and Mr. Pennell's wife is home taking care of the baby, so sorry she couldn't be here also. Now that Sarah's been sworn in, the charter requires that following the oath of office to new commissioner that we have election of officers, and I would recognize Mr. Coley to conduct the election.
Commissioners, last month the nominating committee nominated a slate of officers for your consideration. You will recall that the recommended slate of officers for 2014 is Bruce Anderson, Chair, Celeste Herbert, Vice Chair, and Mark Walker, Secretary. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there a motion to elect the slate selected by the nominating committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Mr. Chair, the slate of officers has been elected, and I'll turn this back over to you at this time.
Great, thank you. That's all the official business that we have, and now I'll recognize Ms. Roach for the President's report.
Commissioners, last week was an unprecedented weather week for us, as you know.
Can I stop you?
Certainly.
There's a little known rule that we have a former commissioner, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
But I need to recognize Tom Jones, who was commissioner for 14 years here. And you have 30 seconds, Mr. Jones.
If I could do it in 30 seconds,
But we
my
allow-
time slips will reflect that it was an hour.
We allow special privileges to former commissioners when they come back to visit us.
Sarah, you and I haven't had a chance to meet, but I have served on the board for 14 years. And I want to welcome you on behalf of former board members to an outstanding body. If you have as much enjoyment in your service, 10% of the enjoyment that I did, then you will be quite fulfilled in this. It is a fantastic group of people. It's a huge undertaking. I remember when I was first sworn in, Jack Sharp, who at that time was vice mayor, said, you will have an impact on more people than the mayor of the city council does. Because the service territory covers more people, a huge number of employees, a huge budget. So welcome to the board and enjoy your service. I thought the timing was interesting when Celeste reminded me of this. I was reminded that, and I went back and looked, it'll be 2 weeks ago this coming Monday will mark the 10th anniversary of Mintha Roach being named the permanent president and CEO of KUB. And that came after, of course, the death of Larry Fleming. So 10 years after Mintha became the first female president, we now have a female majority on the board.
It's a plan.
I'll look to Bill Elmore and simply say it's a whole new world, isn't it? But that's a good thing. You're not changing, you're not getting any better, and I know that your addition to the board is welcome. So welcome to the board and good luck with everything. Thank you all.
Thanks, Tom. Come back and visit more often.
I'll try.
All right. I'm sorry, Minnie.
No problem at all. Thank you, Tom, for being here. We really appreciate it. Again, reminding you, last week was an incredible weather event for us. TVA and KUB did set records in our electric division, but that really doesn't tell the whole story of this particular weather event. It was the coldest that we've had in about 20 years, and I want to recognize Gabrielle Bolus to update you on what all happened last week and how KB responded to that event.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Give you a little short update of how it affected KUB, how it affected our customers, and how we responded to that. Right after the first of the year, when we just got done celebrating New Year's, we got a forecast of snow and colder temperatures that Friday before the event actually happened. We saw high winds, possibly some icing. So as we normally prepared, we prepared for an electric event. As we further along in the weekend, that turned into a much colder event. Something we had not seen in some cases in 20, 30 years, on that particular day in 40 years. And so it started as an electric event, but turned into a gas and a water event that we needed to prepare for. And so we went to that mode naturally here at KUB. So what did we do? Before the event, we prepared by making our system normal, buttoning it up, putting things in service that were taken out for maintenance, for construction, did a lot of those things that, to make it as strong as we could before the event occurred. Things like increasing the gas pressure on our gas system, putting in devices that were taken out of service. We also looked at staffing up our crews for 24-hour service. So we actually asked all of our employees, some are sitting here, to take longer shifts so we could have a 24/7 response on any event that could have occurred. And then we also did some things just to make our system a little more, bolster the strength of our system throughout the event. Mintha mentioned our TVA set a record. We did also, and I'll talk about that in a minute. TVA, before that event began, asked its distributors to curtail or to lower its loadings all across the entire state of Tennessee by turning off things that weren't mandatory, things you can do to shed load. And while that sounds like a little bit of stuff, per distributor, 159 distributors added to a lot of load. So all of us did that voluntarily. They also, for the first time in the winter history, asked large industrials to curtail. Those customers are customers that sign up for a little lower rate, but in times of high demand, whether it be summer or winter, can be asked to turn off. We have 3 electric customers that have that contract, and then TVA executed that provision. But throughout the entire event, TVA maintained adequate voltage to our system. We never had an issue with low voltage or losing capacity. On the gas side of the business, Spectra is our provider, much like TVA, and at no point did they have any pressure issues. We kept the gas flow very well. They actually had people at the gate stations to make sure we adequately kept our gas supply up. And so that was a very good thing. And the gas system has a very similar thing as the electric system curtailments. We did not execute any of those on the KUB system. So all of our gas customers were allowed to use gas as they wanted. Events in our system. The first day the ice/cold weather came through the system, we did have some isolated outages. And because we staffed appropriately, we were able to respond to those pretty quickly. Had no gas outages we can speak of. It was a very good event for the gas division. Water main breaks, as we said earlier, were our biggest concern once we saw the sub-zero temperatures. And sure enough, when it started thawing out, we had a lot of main breaks and a lot of calls. I'll talk about details here in a minute about how many calls we received. Something that's unique to this event, we had a lot of problems on property. A lot of people have problems on their own properties, whether it be mains in their houses, services in their houses, plumbing issues, leaks, breaks, were a bigger issue, but we still had to respond to those events and take care of those for our customers. We actually had some impact on our own facilities. We had 2 facilities that had water main breaks. Our water quality lab on Jackson Avenue, the Fleming's Operations Center, had a water main break. We also had another break at our overhead construction site on the HOC, the Hoskins Operations Center. We fixed those. We're almost back to normal. We're still cleaning up some of the residuals, damage of that, but we did have our own issues. But throughout this entire event, this picture illustrates some of the conditions these guys had to work in. You know, as cold as it was, and as rough the conditions as you could have, we had no safety issues whatsoever that were preventable. You know, this is not something we normally have dealt with, this kind of extreme weather. And while we prepare for extreme emergencies, this really put us to the test, and our guys came through with it with flying colors. Impact on the system. I mentioned it. We did set an electric record, 1288 megawatts. Record previous was 1246. The gas system set an all-time record. We actually had that record hit 2 days in a row, basically 133,668, 668, breaking the old record of 119,000 decatherms. We had a greatly increased amount of calls for leaks, concerns of the facilities. We also instituted a command structure. We have done this traditionally for storms or major events in the electric system. We also implemented this for our water system because of all the issues going on in the system. And that was the first time we've done that for the water division, but we used the same structure we used before, and that went really well. Obviously, the extreme weather being so cold, the impact on the customers was greater than we've seen. You know, when we have an event in the summer, it's easier to survive that event. But this cold weather and the ability to get out there quickly and get the customer restored was a bigger burden on us to respond to that event. Houses were getting cold. We didn't want that to be a long duration event. And so that impact on the customers was of our concern also. And restoring that power. When you lose a customer in the dead of winter, it's a much harder event to restore because of all the customers that come on at the same time. And so we had to strategically decide how we brought people on systematically so we don't cause further issues in the system. And then water production. With all those main breaks that I referred to earlier, we have seen an increased demand on our water system. Our water production is up 32%. It's taxing our water supply. We've recovered since then, but for a few days we were producing as fast as we could to make sure we met the needs of the customers. Here's the slide I was referring to earlier. These are the calls we received for leaks on the system. As you'll see in the blue, large majority of the calls are for customers' property. I've got a leak, I need help. We need to respond to those regardless of whose side of the meter it's on. So we do either go out there and help them turn off the water or at least assess where the problem was at. If it's on their property, they can get a hold of a plumber. If it's on our side, we'll fix that immediately. So as you'll see, the spike there on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of last week was quite a lot. And all the fellows that worked on that, did a really good job responding to that. So what do we do post-event? Similar to a lot of our major events we've had, we like to look at things. The big thing we'll see coming forward is increase in bills. Customers are going to see a higher electric and gas bill, no doubt about it. And so we're trying to prepare our customers for that shock, if you want to call it that. It's going to be higher. We're saying 30 to 50% based off of calculations compared to last month. Water bills, if you had a leak on your property for a substantial amount of time, your water bill will be affected by that. And so we're trying to get that message out to our customers to prepare for that when they open up the bill next month. Also, as we do with a lot of events, we also want to look at lessons learned. What can we do to, as well as we prepared and as well as we did with the event, there's always things we can improve on. And so what we're wanting to also do is we formed a team of key folks in the organization to look at things that we can do to even better respond to this event in the future. As rare as it is, you know, it will happen again, and we want to be better prepared for it each and every time. With that, any questions about any of that?
I have a couple. Just talking about the last thing you mentioned, is there anything that stands out now that happened that we say, okay, you know, we learned from this, we're going to do this differently next time?
It's a good question. I think I wouldn't call it surprise, but the water demand, you know, the leaks, we knew the leaks would occur. The water demand got up there and kind of stayed higher for a lot longer, and that maybe customers not being able to respond. Plumbers were taxed, is what I would say to that. Lasted longer. I'm not sure what impact KB could have had on that. That's also something that was sort of a eye-opening experience. As far as the gas, electric, and water response, we had everybody on board. We prepared as best we could.
What was the longest amount of time that anybody was without power?
We had a small segment of customers were out for about 12 hours. And that was what I referred to getting back on systematically.
That was about 100 customers, as I recall.
Yes, it was 100.
And there were some system issues related with restoration.
Yes.
Put you totally on the spot on this, which is not on this particular incident, but what's occurred up in Charleston, West Virginia. I have thought about that a good bit with those poor folks up there and how they've dealt with that.
Yes.
Have we looked at what's upstream? I'm sure we have. There's a lesson here, I guess. Is somebody kind of going to maybe be a little more proactive in watching what is above stream from us?
And glad you mentioned that. Yes, we've been talking about that all week, actually, since that's occurred, and how we would, what is our response? We have a very good plan in place for a lot of things like that. We do have a lot of industrial customers in the Knoxville area. We also have a lot of customers up with the Tri-Cities where the water comes down the river. How we prepare for that. I know we're going to discuss that internally with this lessons learned group about a water event, a chemical spill, an industrial spill event. So that will be discussed also. But I do know that we do have plans in place for something like that. We do have water in storage, for instance, so we can shut off the supply temporarily, things like that. Because that is it's a real event, and it's really impacting those customers up there greatly.
We've never had to implement that plan, but we do have a long-standing plan that we review periodically and update as necessary that is approved basically by the state regulators, Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, that address how we would react and respond to any kind of water emergency on our system, whether it would be internal or external factors. And we obviously will be looking at that again with respect to what's happened. We have our ability to monitor on a daily basis and detect potential contaminants is very, very good. To the extent we were able to detect anything, we could respond immediately. To the extent we saw it coming at us from upstream somewhere, as Gabe mentioned, we have an incident command system we would put in place and deal with that emergency along with the regulators working alongside us.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.